I just told myself, I deserve this. I've been through hell and back. And then I realized it was becoming, instead of the life raft, it was becoming a weight, an anchor. It was weighing me down.
For generations, women were shamed for trusting themselves, sensing things before they happen, and believing in their own power. No one encouraged them to embrace it until now. Welcome to Trust Yourself.
Hi, I'm Elise, but my sister calls me Sissy.
And I'm her sister, Heidi.
So many of us know what it feels like to reach for something to numb the ache inside, whether it's food, wine, work, scrolling our phones. I think mine is cookies, THC drinks, and ghost hunting shows.
Same.
Or murder mystery, whatever I feel like. My point is, we can all relate to escaping instead of facing our pain and our fears. But what's beautiful is that those struggles, those rock bottom moments, can become the doorway to spiritual awakenings if we so choose. And today's guest, Sarah Campbell, better known as Mother Mystic on TikTok, knows these struggles all too well. She's a mom, a psychic medium, a Reiki practitioner, and an author. And she's joining us from what she calls is the messy middle of her awakening journey. Sarah's here to show how spirit shows up even in chaos, how healing doesn't happen in a straight line, and why our struggles might be the very thing that cracks us open to the light. So let's bring Sarah in. Welcome, Sarah. We are so excited to have you here today, as you are a fellow powerhouse multi-passionate, just like Heidi.
Hey.
You're a mom, a psychic medium, a Reiki practitioner, and an author. But beyond titles, what really stands out about you and why we wanted you on this podcast is your heart for healing others and your willingness to lean into vulnerability that it takes to truly transform. You know firsthand the ugly struggles, grief, trauma that can become the doorway to spiritual awakenings. And that's what we'd love to dive into with you today. Why these spiritual awakenings tend to require us to go through the depths of hell and back, and how you work with your energy to help others move through that and start a healing journey. So Sarah, can you just start by explaining in your own words, and maybe through your experience, what a spiritual awakening actually means?
Okay, first of all, really good question. Also, I was starting to tear up when you were introducing me. I was like, oh, I'm already getting emotional, because I was like, I can't believe this is happening. So thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Well, I will say my awakening just happened. I always liken it to when you become a parent. It's almost like the veil is pulled and you're like, oh, this is what's on the other side.
I like that.
Yeah. This is the shit show. Oh.
This is the world. It's like you no longer see the world you saw it before. And now that you're a parent, it's like you're wearing your heart outside of your body 24/7. Wow. And it's like, as mothers, I feel like you know what I'm saying. It's like everyone who's not a parent, and I know people hate when people say that, but it's like everyone who's not a parent, it's like, oh no, until you're a parent, it's like literally the world becomes 3D instead of 2D, or it's like you just look at world differently. It's just totally different. I liken it to that, where it's like just it's like another curtain got pulled, and it's just there's something on the other side of the curtain now that just expanded my world even more.
Yeah, it's like a massive perspective change. But instead of just focusing onto like another small perspective, it's just widening our normal perspective.
Yeah, I guess as far as like examples of an awakening, it could be as subtle as seeing angel numbers everywhere all of a sudden, or hearing a song and going, oh, I think someone's speaking to me through those lyrics, or a dream visitation, or just a dream where it feels a little bit more real and raw and like a message. I feel like it can go from those little things all the way up to all of a sudden now I'm seeing spirit or something. But I think it's just kind of an array depending. I feel like for some people, they want an awakening to be as big and profound as downloads and stuff. And I think for some of us it is, right? Especially when that's your calling, is to do this type of work. But I think an awakening for anybody can, again, just be realizing that there is something communicating with us and beyond here that is working with us and not against us. And
that there's something more to life than just you. That there is a higher power. I love that.
So for me, my awakening started before I even realized it was happening. And I've always been very, I want to say, intuitive, spiritual, really into psychic mediums. I've read the books when I was younger. So I almost feel like my awakening happened when my mom and I could form a relationship to bond in things, because she would share with me John Edward books, and we would watch Teresa Caputo together, and we would talk about, she would share with me her experiences. So it's almost like my awakening happened in that, like, that's the introductory phase of the awakening, like the education and the diving in of the information and reading every possible book I could. So, and I don't think that necessarily happens for everybody. Some people might have awakenings and they're like not into that stuff at all, and that's even probably more fascinating, honestly. But I would have dreams here and there, where spirits would visit me, little intuitive hits. But I always just figured, okay, I'm a little sensitive, and I would go see psychic mediums. And a couple of years ago, sadly, my father-in-law passed away, and he was a huge rock in our family. And I went to find a psychic medium, and she told me, she brought him through so clearly, and my husband's a huge skeptic, that we both just started sobbing because he came through so clearly. And then sadly, my mom had strokes and got dementia, and it was a whole 2-year process of having to do, physical caretaking for her, all that, while also grappling with other issues within the family that were very difficult. And then my dad died. And so it was kind of this snowball effect. We moved into the middle of nowhere for my husband to get a better paying job. And it was just like the isolation, the grief, the trauma.
Yeah.
I just felt so alone. I got so depressed. Like, I wasn't getting out of bed. I could barely shower. It was just enough to make sure my kids had food and were taken care of. And I was just back to bed, or I was just laying around. And at one point, I just felt, I can't do this anymore. I need something, and I was talking to my guides, if they were out there, or just whoever would listen, constantly. And that, I wonder if, was the big part of it, is the invitation. I feel like that was part of it, was I was calling on them. And I woke up one day, and instead of the heaviness, I felt like this overwhelming sense of clarity, and my life is actually really good. And I looked around and I was like, oh, we have this really beautiful home. And oh my God, the trees are so beautiful. And gosh, my kids are wonderful. I just feel so bad I haven't been hanging out with them as much, and I felt like, I assumed it was my father-in-law, but I think it was probably everyone, my guides, everyone. They were piercing the veil a little bit, and they were saying, no, there is something more beyond this. It's going to be okay, and life is going to be fine. And that didn't last forever, that feeling, but it was enough for me to go, oh, wow, I'm going to be okay. It's going to be hard, but I have a lot to be gracious for. And I think gratitude is a big part of it as well. But basically, I started to pull tarot cards for myself, because I was like, I need answers. I need solace. I need something, because my husband was working all the time. I had no family or friends here. So I was like, I can't just talk to my 6 and 2-year-old constantly. I need human interaction.
We need adult interactions.
So I guess my way of doing that was pulling tarot cards, which is not even...
That totally works.
So I pulled the tarot cards, and I would, they would speak to me in a way that felt like they resonated. And I just, for fun, was like, you know what, I'm going to see if my friends want readings, and just, for free, for fun. So I was calling up my friends, giving them tarot readings, and they started to have visceral emotional reactions to my readings, and crying, or going, oh my God, that's exactly what I'm going through. And it was wild. It was just, that's kind of how it started. But yeah, as far as the mediumship, that was almost a whole other separate piece. That was the true, what blew, cracked me right open.
Yeah. I like how you explained it as a process. First, there's kind of this shift in awareness. You just become slightly aware, and then you're in this learning phase. And then there's kind of a wake-up call, right? The struggle, some sort of trauma. And then you go into this isolation and inner transformation phase. And that is not always comfortable. And so many people think, oh, spiritual awakening, that's just lovely and la la la. Wow, I'm so enlightened. But no, it can actually be terrifying, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
buckle up.
Right. So yeah, it can come with periods of struggle and challenge. So without going into details if you're not comfortable with, but can you share maybe what you've learned about how these hardships can actually open the door to your awakening?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when I was thinking about this question, I saw in my mind, it's so cheesy, but I saw in my mind like the struggle being the rock and I was the egg, and it just cracked me open. It was like, I think part of it was my want for connection so deeply, my loneliness, my sadness, my despair, and wanting my mom back, and, all of this stuff that was going on in my life that I just felt so alone. It was almost like grief itself was what thinned the veil. And I know a lot of people talk about, grief being a cloud and not being able to get through that to communicate. But for me, it was actually like the reverse. It was like my grief thinned the veil, and it was like that feeling, that experience woke me up, or it gave me the awakening. And I'm forever grateful because it helped pull me out of, I'm still wading through it, but it gave me something to hold on to. And I have ADHD and anxiety, so it was something to obsess over as well. But in the middle of that, kind of before it, I was struggling, feeling lonely, feeling like I didn't have connection, just wanting that warm, fuzzy feeling again. So I did sometimes lean on things that, were not healthy coping, mechanisms maybe,
We all do.
Yep.
I fell into issues of addiction, and my guides are so kind to me because I really am good at shaming myself, and and I'm trying not to cry about this, but they said, you were in a period of drowning and you reached for it as a life preserver, but you now are strong enough to handle this. And like, they just try not to shame me over it. Like I'll journal, or I'll sit and channel them, or they'll talk to me through my tarot cards. So that's what I mean when I say I'm communicating with them. They'll show me ways, about how they feel about it. And I get scared, and I'm like, well, I slipped up again. I was feeling alone. I was feeling scared. I was feeling vulnerable, and I slipped up. And they're like, we're not going anywhere, like.
Oh, I got full body chills.
I have goosebumps all over.
Yeah.
Ugh.
This is powerful.
That's so true for so many people. And it's not like addiction with a capital A, like, alcoholics or narcotics. It's also like addiction to your phone, to numbing
Sugars
yourself.
for me.
Oh my God, carbs.
Sugar addiction's hard.
Yeah. They even say you can have like the spiritual addiction, right? Where it's like you no longer are grounded and you're just up in the crown constantly.
Yeah.
I think that's also me.
That was me in the beginning too. It was just because, like I said, it was like I needed something, and then that actually started to dwindle, and I needed it too because I was just getting fried. Like the downloads were constant, and I was like, and now I miss it. And my guides were like, "Well, you were almost fried out, so we're gonna give it some time." But so for a while, I kept, even though I had my awakening, I was doing readings, I was still taking the medicine to feel better, and it became like another arm or leg. It was like I just told myself I deserve this. Like I've been through hell and back. And then I realized it was becoming, instead of the life raft, it was becoming a weight, an anchor. It was weighing me down. And I've been working through healthy coping mechanisms with that, trying to get through that. But I'm still definitely in the messy of it.
I appreciate your honesty and transparency, because I love that you're still going through it, because it's so often we hear these speeches of, oh, I was going through horrible times, but look at me now. And that's sometimes hard for people to resonate with.
I love that, to see someone's recovery story and them succeeding. But I haven't often heard from people who are like in the thick of it. And sometimes it's like,
no, because usually they have their head in the sand and they're like, I don't want to talk about it. But guess what? How many other people have their head in the sand and they don't want to talk about it? But the second somebody speaks up like, hey, I'm doing really shitty, all those other heads pop out of the sand. They're like, oh, wait, what?
It's like meerkats, beep, beep, beep. Wait, you said what? You said that? You said you're recovering? Me too? Huh? What?
Yes, I think this is so important and so needed. I love that you're talking about it with honesty and you're still going through it. But look at you, you're still like kicking ass.
Yeah.
Well, and, I think there's this idea you said something really good earlier, Elise, about everyone kind of thinks awakenings are all like butterflies and roses and like it's just and it can be that way, absolutely, but you have to have a strength and a willingness to heal and grow if you want to have an awakening because your guides are going to say, okay, you want to do this? All right. Well, here's some work that you need to do. And here's some things you need to recognize. And
Then they hit you with the inner child trauma
yeah,
and the shadow
yes,
work and like,
yes,
here, let's do this.
that was something wild that happened to me actually is I started to see my inner child wounds in my downloads and it
Mhm.
scared me at first because it was like my face was always kind of distorted. And it was my guide's way of showing me that like something maybe was off, or it was just their way of symbolizing it was a wound. And once I was able to not be scared of it and have empathy for it when I was seeing it, I was able to go further into the vision and see what was really going on and what was the trigger point and what caused it. But if I went into it fearful and shut it down, I just lost out on a healing moment
Yep.
and a growth moment. So it was like my guides would show me visions that were kind of freaky sometimes and a little nerve-wracking. And I had to learn my way of knowing if I was ready was if I was willing to push further into the vision. And I started seeing other people's inner child wounds, and that got really wild. That's since kind of stopped. I kind of hope it gets back because I think it's a really great way of healing if people are open to it, is addressing those things and talking through them and generational trauma. But it's since kind of stalled. But that's something my guides have told me before is part of what I'm supposed to do. It's not just healing in this lifetime. It's healing generational and ancestral stuff too, which is pretty cool and wild.
Heck yeah.
Sarah, you talk about these abilities coming and going, and I know we've talked about this before offline, but you kind of had a great analogy about this.
Oh, the spiral.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
spiral. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Can't take credit for that one either. That was my spirit guides. But I asked them, like, I was just getting so frustrated because I rode the exciting time of having the downloads and everything and seeing the inner child wounds and all that stuff that just made my reading so much more rich and healing and helpful. And then it just kind of started to go away. And I was still doing readings. I was still doing it, but it was like it shifted. It was just a little quieter. And I was kind of bummed. And I thought maybe I was like, as earthly beings, we think of punishment and we think of, oh, I did something wrong. So I instantly think, am I being punished because I've used this medicine to, help myself, or I've done something that I shouldn't do? And they were like, no, like it's more just that there's a waxing and waning with it. And sometimes we integrate and there's activation. So integration and activation in awakenings. And activation is all those downloads, right? All that crazy information, all that stuff happening. And then there's a lull and in the spiral, there's a lull, right? So then it's like you get tired and you might sleep a lot more, or you might, just start taking all that stuff you integrated or was activated, and now it's integrating. So it's just this period of applying what you've learned and resting, okay? Because you need that. It's like a muscle you're working. So you're going to need rest days in between the workouts.
Yeah.
And what they showed me was, think of the spiral as like a 3D image, like a slinky. And when you kind of mess with a slinky, how it gets those stretched out bits.
Yep.
They showed me that the stretched out bits are like the big activation, right? Like it's like, whoa, I'm really ascending, this is crazy. And then, there's those squished parts where you're still going up. It just feels like you're not, because it's the rings are so close together as they're going up. And I was like, oh, that's so good. And
that's wild. Okay.
Isn't it great?
I don't want to cut you off. I want you to keep
go
going.
ahead.
But this is the weirdest thing too, because when you were talking about awakening, I literally wrote awakening equals accordion. And I was seeing like an accordion getting like stretched. And I was like, oh, and then you use slinky. And I was like, that's the same fucking thing as an accordion.
Yes.
I was like, awakening equals accordion. And then I wrote expansion underneath it. So I was like, Okay. I guess I'm tapped into your spirit guides.
You're having like predictive messages. You like knew what I was going to say. That's
Oh, that's
awesome.
so fun. I love those visuals though, because it really helps people solidify and understand. Because as humans, we like to see things before we can believe them. So I feel like having that slinky image when they're stretched apart or when it's sitting together, you're always still moving, but it's just how it feels is different. That's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Sarah, because you're a psychic medium and you do a lot of readings, and you're still in the messy middle, we've also talked about this too, that you've noticed that you've gotten a lot of clients come in that have similar issues or similar struggles as you, and then you get messages from spirit. When you connect with them, what kinds of messages and insights come through for people that are working through this healing process?
I love that question so much. Yeah, it's one of the coolest things. The way spirit works is just so freaking cool. The way like it's not just I'll get a message and it's not just a message for the person I'm reading. It might be for 6 other people in the room or 20 other people. I do the piggybacking where people will get not just multiple messages from similar loved ones, like maybe with the same birthdays and same personalities, but also the same struggles or same traumas or experiences that have happened. So not only for them, but then also for me, I will be going through something and then my readings for at least a few days or weeks will mirror exactly what I'm going through, whether I wanted to or not. It's like I'm faced to look in the mirror, it's like, oh, you're not going to sit with this. Okay, well, we're going to make you sit with it in your reading. But it's just so amazing how they line that stuff up. It just blows my mind. And an example of that is when I realized I needed to start addressing my unhealthy coping skills, I started getting a lot of messages from spirits who either died from overdose or died from mental health issues and were using. And it was very interesting because, I'm live on TikTok, I'm giving these readings and I'm like, holy crap, like, this is relatable. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. And so there's something for me to take from it. And I assume the reason they do that is to, one, make sure I know that I'm not alone, and also to help other people know they're not alone. But also, again, just as like a lesson and to make sure that I face this stuff. So a lot of what comes through are spirits who are addressing either that they were able to work on their karmic work and their generational patterns and breaking that, or that they weren't. So what's been kind of healing for people in those readings, at least I hope, is that sometimes what I get is to be able to tell them your loved one is acknowledging that they had work to do and they struggled with it and they weren't able to break those patterns, but you are. And or they see you struggling with these patterns too, and they don't want you to feel alone and you're going to be okay and things like that. And so those are the types of kind of healing messages that can come through. Also, a big one is just there's always no shame. It's always, even the ones who've died from maybe addiction or other mental health struggles, they always hold themselves accountable. It's always, I'm so sorry that my choices harmed you and hurt you, but they never say it with shame. They just say the truth of the matter. Yeah. And I think that's really great because it's like they've brought in their perspective on the other side and they've been able to see it for what it is and not shame themselves. And by doing that, it's like allowing those still on earth dealing with those same issues to go, okay, so I shouldn't feel shame either. It's not to say don't try or to work on it or find other healthy coping skills or things like that. But again, it's just no shame. And one of the things I love so much is I think I sent Elise the other day was this awesome quote, and it fits so well, I feel like, for people going through these types of struggles and are also healers in some way, even nurses or anyone who does that type of stuff. It said, the healer struggles so they can return with the medicine. And I just thought that was so cool. And I feel like in some ways that's what Spirit's doing, is they went through their struggles, they left, and now they're returning with some medicine.
I just got full leg and both my legs and both my arms are now chilled. Just full goosebumps.
Both my legs and my arms, my appendages.
Well, sometimes it's my whole body, but it skipped over my belly this time. So it just went to my appendages.
Sarah, I was curious as you were talking about this, it made me think, when we are in these periods of struggle and in addiction, and maybe we're not going to go see a psychic medium. I know we have free will, but do you think that spirit can somehow orchestrate some things to help us through this journey? Or are there things that they do, sending us signs, things like that, that can help us?
Oh, 100%. And, I think in some ways there's very broad collective ways, like angel numbers, music. But even on an individual level, I think it could be very specific to each person. Maybe all of a sudden you're feeling alone and you open up a book and out falls a picture of you and your family, just reminding you that like you're not alone, and spirit might have orchestrated that. I had that happen to me where I was like begging spirit. I was crying. I missed my mom and I heard this thud. And I went upstairs to look and I looked around. There was nothing that fell. My cat just looked at me annoyed because I woke her up. And I went back downstairs and a picture had fallen. And I picked it up and it's this Greek picture that I always wanted since I was a kid of a mom holding up her baby in the air. There's water out there and there's like the columns. My mom had that in the house at the top of the stairs. So every time I'd walk upstairs, that picture was right there and I've always wanted it. And when I picked that up, underneath it was a family photo and it was just all of our family. My dad's still alive, my mom healthy, all of us still together. And our family just right now just feels very broken up. And I just started sobbing and I was like, I just want things to be the way they are. And I just kind of held it to me and like clutched it. And then a couple days later, my friend Maddie, she won't mind that I said her name.
Hey, Maddie.
She is actually a couple years sober. So she's been like a really good guiding light for me. And she came over and she's very intuitive, but doesn't do any of this, doesn't have any interest in it. Kind of freaks her out actually, but she's extremely intuitive. And she walked in, she goes, I don't know, I was at this thrift shop and I just felt like I needed to get this for you. And it was almost the exact same picture, but it was two little girls, almost like they were across the water, and it was the exact same setting. It had the columns and they were in Greek outfits and they were calling out to like what I would imagine would be the mom and the baby. Wow. And I said, did you know I had a picture just like this? And she goes, no. And I showed it to her and I was like, put them next to each other. And I was like, these are meant to be together. And so,
oh my gosh,
it felt like it was my mom and me and the baby and the mom picture. And it was my two little girls and the other one.
I have goosebumps.
This time it's full body.
I'm going to cry.
So those are like some of those messages that people can get and just have to kind of be open to receiving them.
Absolutely. And what I love about this is that you are going through this awakening and you are open to those signs because, I mean, let's face it, my average person, even me like 20 years ago, if I was so upset and I saw something fall, I'd be like, son of a bitch, pick it up and be like mad about it.
Like it's another roadblock.
Yes. Like why my life is falling apart, but you're actually looking at things as they are signs. And that is part of this healing process and it's helping you. Yeah, some people could think of that, it's just a small thing. It's a coincidence. It doesn't matter. I'm going to read to you something that my coach said to me. She said, in the grand scheme of the universe, all grace that is given is enormous. And I was like, oh, that's so true. Yeah. Isn't that great? So let's look at these little things as signs for us. They're huge. They're huge.
And I also love that in the perspective of giving yourself grace and giving other people grace is not just a small thing. Sometimes it's going to be, again, if you're struggling, if someone gives you even the smallest bit of grace for your choices or for the things that you've done, that's enormous. Mm-hmm. It shifts someone's whole life.
Yeah. I know that a lot of people go through spiritual awakenings, but I also know that not all of those people that go through spiritual awakenings become psychic mediums. So what might it look like for somebody that does go through this? Like, how would they know if they're on the other side of the awakening, but they're not like hearing spirit or something like that?
I love that. Yeah. I think that, again, just my perspective, because I can only speak to mine. I wanted that, right? So I was willing to open that door. But spirit and your guides they want you to set boundaries. They want to form that relationship with you. It's very important if want that you speak it or you don't. And if you say, I don't want to see spirit, or I'm open to the messages from my guides for me, I'm opening to pulling cards for myself, I'm open to that. I don't want to see spirit, or I don't want to do readings, I don't want to be a psychic medium. You can, ultimately you have that free will to turn that off, and they're going to respect that. And I think it's just a matter of communication and just putting your intentions out there.
I like that you explained it that way, because I've heard a lot of people that they don't say they're psychic mediums, but a lot of people that have premonitions or have these weird dreams, and they are like, I dreamt this happened and it happened. And why did spirit show me that? Because I couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And it made them mad. And now knowing that maybe this is just a lesson in them learning to set a boundary and tell spirit, like, no, I don't want to do this. And it's not just spirit, right? It's the lesson in boundaries for your human life too. I need to set a boundary and tell people what I do and do not want to see or have in my life, in my bubble.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
cool.
I even had to do the thing where, when my abilities came online right around Lionsgate Portal, 8/8, August 8th. That's when I was able to actually have psychic medium abilities, which I hadn't had before. And long story short, after that happened, I didn't sleep for 4 days. And I put out an SOS TikTok basically, and people were spamming me with all of the ideas and things to try. And I truly think that the one thing that helped a lot, besides moving some of the crystals out of my room, which didn't need to be there, was setting the business hours, before bed, being like, okay, guys, I'm shut down for the night. I am not going to receive any messages, because I just kept getting them all night long and I could not stop.
And when you say setting business hours, you don't mean for your clients or for yourself. You mean for
I meant for
spirit.
I straight up mean I had to put a closing sign on my brain for spirit to be like, my crown chakra's closed, guys.
Yeah. I'm so glad that worked for you, because when you put out that SOS, I remember sending you a voice memo and I just went, I have no good advice for you. I am with you in solidarity, because it's really rough.
Yeah.
And because for me, it wasn't working. I was shaking the salt. I was
Yep.
I
Doing
was
all the circles.
literally doing everything. I had the grounding crystals. I was drawing ruin thresholds in my doorways. I was literally doing everything I possibly could, and it was still happening. And it was like it went from that to nothing. And I was like, "Can we have an in between?" But my guides are starting to ease me back into it. But yeah, I feel for you, because when you posted that, I was like, I know that feeling. It's awful, because it's like you're so happy to have this ability, but it's like even good stuff, too much of it is a bad thing. And
Yeah.
I need sleep. I'm still human,
Yeah. My body is breaking down now,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
But that's just another thing that it just goes to show you, everybody has these different journeys. Everybody's awakening's different. Some people have a longer time where they go through the rough patch. Some people don't. And it's just crazy how it's we can all have these same sort of journeys, but they're all vastly different.
Right. I mean, it's really, if you think about it, it's like, for some reason, I'm thinking of you being a nurse, and all these people go to nursing school, right? But everyone goes to a different job or deals with different coworkers, or things like that.
Yeah.
It's just like everyone's going to still have their individual experience, and
Absolutely.
I love that spirits are your coworkers.
I'm sorry, but they're the coolest coworkers.
They're pretty
They
cool.
really are. They really are the coolest coworkers, but sometimes they talk too much.
Yeah. Sometimes they need to learn boundaries, and so do we.
Okay, Sarah. So for someone who's listening right now who might feel like they are currently at rock bottom, what's some advice that you could give them as they are going through the beginning of their spiritual awakening journey?
Great question. I would say for me, the biggest thing was finding people who've been through the same thing that you can talk to. Don't expect that they're going to fully understand your experience, because it's still going to be unique to you. But for me, I was I felt like someone just threw me out into like the water, and I just was like, I just need someone to help me learn how to paddle, and then I can try to figure out the rest of this on my own. And I found my friend and also spiritual mentor now who has kind of helped guide me through some of this. So I would say find someone or a group of people that are like-minded. Find a safe person in your everyday life that you can talk to about it. And if nobody is, first of all, I'm sorry, because that can feel very isolating, but find that in other ways, again, connecting on social media. Thankfully, we have that for that. But also making sure to ground, because again, it can get really exciting to feel these connections. But I think we don't have to only have the visions and the meditations and the, all that stuff. Go out and walk in nature and ground yourself and connect that way. I'm a big believer in crystals. Not everybody is. So I guess for me, getting like grounding crystals and other crystals were really helpful. If you're interested in Reiki, I would say find a Reiki practitioner, because that really helped me. It opened up my third eye more and my crown, and it helped balance other things out and ground me. And that was really helpful to me. But I would say journal, journal a lot. I think documenting, because it's fun to look back on. But no, you're not crazy. It is real, and enjoy it, but set boundaries.
I love that. And I totally agree with the finding the like-minded people, because especially in an architecture firm for 15 years of my life, you're surrounded by people that are very logical and artistic, but we don't talk about ghosts at all.
What?
I mean, just for fun.
In your historical restorations, you never talked about ghosts?
Okay, take that back. We did talk about it then, but it was kind of play-like, right? You're just kind of giggling about it. Like, I wonder if there's any spooks in the attic. And then you're like, wait, but how far can I talk about it with this girl? Like, is she going to freak out?
Yeah, you never know. Like, that's kind of the other thing too, is if you already have a group of friends and then you start to open up, start to talk about spirituality, and you're just kind of testing the waters, like, okay, how much can we talk about?
We need to have the weird conversations.
Have more weird conversations. Shirt number 2.
Okay, so we talk about trauma kind of triggering this spiritual awakening and being the start, the kickoff to this. But do you think it has to be trauma with a capital T, or could it also be kind of smaller, more gradual events that unfold that start to just shake up your inner world? So more about like impact, not size?
Yeah, I mean, I think awakenings can happen without any, struggle or trauma. I think it can absolutely happen. I think there's probably many people who could probably speak to that. Like, I've had a pretty good life and I'm still doing, like I haven't had much struggle, and good for them.
Yeah.
but yeah, absolutely. I think that it can be a little T or a no T. I think it can go any which way. I do have someone that I know who was talking to me about that. She goes, do you think that I'm not, like, is something wrong with me? Or like, all these people talk about going through these struggles and they're having these awakenings. Am I not going to have one? Because my life's been pretty good. And I said, absolutely not. I said, first of all, you've lived many lives probably, and some of them were probably very hard. So enjoy your nice life with your spiritual stuff, because you've probably earned it. Like, this is not the only life you've lived. So that's just my personal opinion. I'm a big believer in reincarnation, but yeah. So I think, it can happen any which way. I think it's just about intention and willingness to be open to it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay. So Sarah, I sent you this question ahead of time to see if you could do some channeling for us. And the question was, if you could channel this message from spirit, how can we as a collective start to heal from addictions and distractions in our culture?
So when I sat with this question and kind of asked my guides for help on how to answer this, one of the big things they came through with is that we need to start embracing our sensitivity more and not looking at it as if it's a negative thing. To go through pain, unfortunately, is part of the human experience. And sadly, I feel like we live right now in society, it's more individualistic, and I'm going to get a little scientific here. I'm not I'm not smart in that way, but I do know that we all as humans have a vagus nerve, which is what makes us have empathy. It's what helps us relate to others. It's why when you see someone crying or in pain, you feel their pain. It's our superpower.
Empathy is strength. Yes.
Yes, it is a strength. And it's just something that I feel like we need to get back to. That's what my guides are telling me to. And it's like our sensitivity isn't a weakness. And I feel like so many people feel in their pain, in their trauma, in whatever they're going through, that they have to deal with it on their own or that it makes them weak. And I feel like this a lot for how society treats men too. It's like they have to be strong and they can't show that they need help. And therapy is great too, right? Like at least we're in a society where we can do that. But I'm talking more on a community level, families, friends, community. If we see someone in pain, help them through it, let them know they're not alone. And I feel like there's just so many people, they showed me just so many people all on their own, just grappling with this pain and seeking something to help them feel better, when really if we could all just start helping each other, it would, it might help. And pain is not comfortable, but it's meaningful. It's part of why we're here. It's the hardest classroom to be in, Earth. But if we can just remember that we're meant to work together, I feel like that would be really important.
So if we all just start to pop our heads out of that sand.
And obviously it's not going to fix everything. There's systemic issues. There's so many things, but I think from spirit, they're always going to speak from that kind of avenue. I feel like, at least with me, and that was the big thing, is just don't see your sensitivity as weakness. And when you see someone struggling or you think they are, it's okay to reach out and say something and let them know they're not alone.
That's beautiful.
Beautiful.
I totally agree. Totally agree. Yes. Well, Sarah, before we go, is there anything that our listeners can do for you to help your mission?
Find me on TikTok. It's primarily how you can find me. It's how you'll see me go live and give guidance readings and do mediumship. It's also where I share in my bio where you can find my readings. That would mean the world to me. I love to write. I write about, the rawness of motherhood and awakening, crying, doing the dishes because I'm overstimulated while channeling someone's grandmother. It's like I write about all of that, about grief and trauma and my past lives. I have lots of stuff in there, and I want to write a book, and I am writing a book.
Yay.
And so thank you. And so my guide's been showing me realm travels and going to different realms, and I've been trying to document all of that stuff, but also I want to write a bio and my experience. So
yeah. So if you go to Mother Mystic on TikTok and then click your link tree, all of your info's in there.
Yes. Just to share, I go by Mother Mystic because I'm a mother and a mystic, and the mother comes first because I am a mother of a 62-year-old. And so that's why I named myself that.
I love it.
Sweet. Sarah, thank you so much for sharing everything, like being so raw and honest and vulnerable with us, because we know that life isn't perfect, and so many people resonate with that. And I certainly do. So I appreciate your time. I'm so glad you came on our podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It was lovely having you.
Thank you.
I've always loved Sarah's grounding energy, but even more today, I felt so connected to her vulnerability. That was so sweet of her to open up and share those stories.
Yeah. 100. Okay. We haven't said it in a while, so say it. 100%, baby. I think what stuck with me the most was when she said she could reach out to her spirit guides and say, I slipped up again. And their response was, we're not going anywhere. Because that's something that sometimes a lot of people don't have in the real world either.
Absolutely.
You don't have somebody where you can say, be so vulnerable and tell them like, I messed up again. And they're still just going to be like, it's okay. I'm still right here. I'm not going anywhere.
So true.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you do have somebody that says that, there's always kind of this underlying fear of, are they judging me or this or that, but your spirit guides, they absolutely don't care. They just want the best for you. And it's so beautiful how she explained that.
I agree. I also want to say that even if you don't feel connected to spirit guides, you do have spirit guides. Every soul has spirit guides. So we are always with our spirit guides and we are never alone. So even if you can't communicate with your spirit guides and you're going through something hard like this, just know that they are there and they're giving you that same energy right back. We aren't going anywhere.
The spiral slinky visual for me was key because I always go through these points where I'm like, radio silence, what's going on? Is anyone here? Does anyone care? But it's so nice to know that it's just gradual sometimes.
Yeah.
All right. This was so great. So let's end it with our favorite, Heidi's tarot for the week.
You guys are not going to hear me shuffle because when I picked up this deck, this card flew out and I immediately knew that this was for today. It is the blue moon and it says, believe in the impossible.
Yeah.
So believe in the impossible. You can do the impossible. We want this podcast to help you believe in the unbelievable. So that works with believe the impossible. God damn it. Cut me off. I got to go to bed.
We don't normally record this late at night, so we're a little tired. Sorry.
Mommy needs to go night-night. It's 7:30.
All right, then. So until next time, it's your move, sis.
Make it count.
Bye.
And there's my children right on cue.